Well, good evening, everybody. It is a Wednesday night. Seems like it's been really active the last few weeks. We've had some active storms here, going back to March 14th with the big hail, and then April 1st, and of course the eclipse last week. We had some thunderstorms yesterday that produced some large hail and some gusty winds. Most of the tornadoes, though, yesterday were well to our north, but we want to kind of get you updated on what we're expecting to develop and evolve here as we go into tomorrow. We'll be in a storm alert here all day tomorrow, and it's mainly for the afternoon and evening hours. As you see, you've got one area and it's honed right into St. Louis to Paducah over towards Evansville, Indiana, where we're already up to a level 3 out of 5 risk for severe weather here going into Thursday. The reason being that we were upgraded from 2 to 3 this afternoon from the Storm Prediction Center is it appears the options for winds being 65, 70 miles per hour in some cases, maybe even some stronger gusts than that. It seems like the wind threat is higher over this area in particular from St. Louis south and east, where it will be more unstable as that line of thunderstorms is expected to push in. So what's going on? Okay, yesterday we had this storm system that's well to our northeast now. That's lifting up through the Great Lakes. The severe weather today's been over in the Ohio Valley, especially into Ohio. We've had the gorgeous sunshine all day long. Sure, it was breezy, but it was bright, and temperatures in the low 80s, and the humidity levels backed off. We pushed the humidity farther to the south. So what's changing? We have another system, more energy swinging in from the north and west. You already see some showers and thunderstorms. In fact, what's developing now across South Dakota into Nebraska, that is partially a clue for us heading into tomorrow, because as this system evolves and develops here, we will watch those thunderstorms work their way off to the east overnight, and showers and thunderstorms that get into northwest Missouri during the overnight hours and into very early tomorrow morning kind of set the stage for what we'll see as we go through the day tomorrow. So we should be out the door with no problems tomorrow morning, right? Don't think we're going to have any issues early on. Any rain is holding off until the very earliest, 11 o'clock, and that's probably much farther north and west of St. Louis. Now, we will look for some sunshine in the morning. The thing about those showers and thunderstorms that develop off to our northwest that'll be pushing our way, later in the morning into the afternoon, if they put out a really thick deck of clouds, or if they actually hold together and we end up seeing the temperatures held down because of that cloud cover, that works in our favor for not seeing severe weather. We don't think that that's going to be an issue at this point, especially from areas around the metro and to the south and southeast. The other thing is, our dew points tonight, they dropped way off, down into the 40s, really comfortable air. Tomorrow, we're bringing dew points back close to or above 60 degrees. How much moisture surges in ahead of the front is going to be key for us tomorrow. So this is what we expect early tomorrow morning. We're talking 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Your cluster of showers and thunderstorms will be up here, parts of Iowa, back into portions of northwest, north central Missouri, and into Kansas. That's trudging on to the east. Theoretically, that's weakening. At the same time, that area is weakening, and we're getting at least some sunshine in St. Louis. The winds are more out of the south, southeast. That's bringing the moisture back in here. And then that sets the stage for further development heading through the rest of tomorrow. So, we'll have to watch what happens with that cluster, that first cluster of showers and thunderstorms. It may maintain some strength as it moves across our northern counties from Bowling Green to Troy to Hardin to Jerseyville and Carrollton. That's through the early afternoon. And then right along the front, redevelopment. So if that area exists, it's a question of whether it even exists. We don't know if that first wave up to our north will actually be there tomorrow morning. This is this is just one of the computer models. But if that were to mix the air over and kind of work the air over, the atmosphere over, then maybe some of the second round of those storms, north and west, aren't so bad. But then farther to the south, where it's already above 80 degrees and the moisture is continuing to stream to the north, that, of course, really sets up the stage for some of these storms to get pretty intense. Right now, we do think that line will be intensifying as it comes into the St. Louis area sometime between 2 o'clock and, say, 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So this is what the computer says at 4. It's just a suggestion. It's kind of like that, your frozen dinner. They look great. Those frozen dinners, you go down the aisle, you look in the freezer section, that dinner looks fantastic. And then you take it out of the box when you get home, it doesn't look like that, right? So the radar won't look exactly like this, but we do expect it to look something similar to this. Maybe a little farther east or a little farther west, maybe a little stronger, maybe a little weaker. Those are things we're not going to know until we really get into the thick of things tomorrow afternoon. But that line will still work east and southeast. So the question is, as this line's doing that, does it have enough moisture? Does it have the instability to really kick those winds up? And there are signs in here, just looking at this from a model perspective. The computer models are already trying to push the air through and indicating you've got winds in these storms. And that's what we think is the biggest threat for tomorrow, those stronger winds. Now, once that line goes through by 7, 8 o'clock tomorrow night, southeast of St. Louis, we're watching it exit, then the cooler, the drier air is going to come in and slide in through the region. So as far as the fuel goes, during the course of the day, it's there, and then as the storms go through, we press that off to the south and east. So this is the available potential energy. You notice it wasn't so much so farther to the north of St. Louis. What about the winds aloft? Your jet stream winds are actually stronger to our north, but there's still a good amount of shear here. So we still have plenty of wind. It's not as strong. The upper level winds will not be as strong tomorrow as they actually were yesterday, but yesterday we could not get all of the ingredients you need for severe weather to kind of overlap at the same time and in the same place to create the intense thunderstorms. So bottom line is we're going to have thunderstorms on Thursday. There's really no question that that's going to happen. That's definitely going to happen. Okay, we think it's after lunchtime in the metro St. Louis area. By far the greatest threat is going to be wind gusts, 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts. That's what we think is the biggest threat. Not to say that some of the storms might produce some hail up to the size of quarters or that we might see some isolated tornadoes. That's certainly a possibility, especially if one of those storms starts bowing out, surging out. On the north side of that, you tend to see some brief spin-ups. But the other thing is, if the humidity levels, if the dew points are only around 60, 61 versus, say, 64, 65, that also puts the base of the clouds a little bit higher. And so twisting in those storms has to work harder because it's got a longer distance to drop out of the cloud before it can get to the ground. Problem with this damaging wind is it's not really just isolated. These are the types of storms that will produce swaths of damage. We've seen that several times in St. Louis over the years. And it's the kind that produces a lot of tree branches down. You know, maybe it doesn't knock the whole tree down, but if you get a 6 or 8 inch branch that comes down on the power lines and you get that through a whole neighborhood and then you go into the next neighborhood and it keeps going, then you have a lot of power lines. You got to clean those branches up. You got to get the power lines back up. And the power outages tend to be a little more widespread because it's kind of, you know, it's a domino effect. It's not just the tornado taking out a narrow path and we can fix everything around that. This is more haphazard, if you will, with the trees and the power lines being knocked over, the branches and such. So that's a concern tomorrow. Make sure your phones are charged up. Of course, you probably have a charger in your car too, but you know, just make sure your phones are charged up tomorrow afternoon because there may be a time where you're going to be without power. And if we do see somewhat widespread power outages or power outages that are extensive in number over a large area, a few tens of thousands, which this seems like that's that kind of event, then you know it's not going to be like 15, 20 minutes or 2 hours, 3 hours, and everybody's power's back on. It's going to take a while before the crews can get that. In the meantime, we've got a great sunset around St. Louis tonight. We've had just a gorgeous sky with that mainly clear sky this afternoon. And again, in downtown St. Louis right now, 72 degrees after our high today of 82. And your dew point is just 45. Yes, the dew point's just 45. If we can keep that at or below 60 degrees on the dew point for tomorrow, that'll limit how bad things get. But again, that's a big if, no guarantees there. So we will be in storm alert here for your Thursday. And the main hours are really, from about lunchtime on. That's when we need to be really staying aware as to what's going on and tracking those storms. We're going to be here with you tomorrow tracking those storms. Anthony Slaughter will start it off early in the morning. Jim Castillo will have you covered through much of the day. And then as we get into the afternoon, I'll be back in here. Gary Frank's in here. Tracy Hinson's starting her day tomorrow morning out in the storm tracker. So there's no question that, we have you covered tomorrow as we go through the storms across the St. Louis area. I really think that in this case, and not to be alarmist, but in this case, it really does seem like there's a greater potential tomorrow for us to have more significant severe weather, if you will, versus yesterday when, we had the chance and it's possible, but there was a little more iffiness, if you will, as to whether it was going to happen. So again, your morning commute's just fine. When the kids get out of school tomorrow afternoon, we may have some problems. And listen, your school district, the school folks, they're on National Weather Service chat, a lot of them, with us, administrators and the safety people from the schools. They're not going to send the buses out into rip-roaring storms. If there's significant severe weather in those storms, the kids may get held at school for a little while longer, and that's okay. They'll be safe there. So we're not talking about widespread tornadoes. We're just talking about winds from storms and maybe an isolated tornado that pops up. But winds are going to be the biggest threat, and probably for the metro area right in time for the evening rush hour. Now, that may change, maybe move up an hour, maybe it slides back and it's not at the beginning of the rush hour. It happens during the middle of the rush hour, towards the end of the rush hour. That we're still working on. We're going to see how things evolve. But the bottom line is tomorrow's definitely a storm alert day. We need you to be prepared, know that it's coming. Make sure your friends know too, because some folks don't always check in, tune in, and stay up to speed on what's going on. So, we just kind of want to let everybody know what's going on so you're aware of it, because if you're aware of what's happening and the storms are coming, you can get on the 5 on Your Side app and you can check the radar and you can see where the storms are. You can kind of base, you're running around tomorrow afternoon, your time frame on it for what's going on, and just, plan your life around it as well. So that's where we are at this point. It's all quiet this evening. Beautiful sunset looking over Forest Park this evening. You look downtown, quiet conditions right now. So certainly can't complain about that at all. And, it's just tomorrow we are going to have, our afternoon. The storms will last about 2 hours, and we're thinking the worst of the bumpy ride, the strongest winds are probably at the beginning of the thunderstorms. When they first start, or even before it starts raining, is when you might see some of the strongest winds tomorrow. And again, we're not going to rule out some 70 or 75 mile per hour gusts in a situation like this. So not to scare you, but want you to be aware of what's going on tomorrow. We'll keep you updated. 5+, KSDK.com, on air, online. We'll be wherever you need us to be tomorrow so that we can keep you up to speed on what's going on, and we'll track these storms through the area as the afternoon wears on. But definitely a weather first storm alert day on Thursday.